What up, pimps? I'm Labruski. Welcome back to the show. Today, I wanted to come on here and talk a bit about some of my favorite indie comics. Um, for those of you who may be new to comics, or for those of you who think comics are just superheroes, granted, a big part of comics are just superheroes, so you're not wrong necessarily. Um, there are indie comics, which kind of fall out of the realm of the big two publishers, so Marvel and DC. In my mind, any comic that's not published by those two are indie comics. Some people have different definitions of that, and may get angry with my definition, but I'm a simple man. I like to keep things simple. That's how I define it. Um, so, to kind of dive in here, I'm just going to start out with some of the heavy hitters. Um, these two comics that I'm about to talk about are probably on almost everyone's top five indie comics. They're just that good, that popular. They're so well written. They're just very well known comics. So the first one I have, no surprise, is Saga. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. If you've read Saga, you know why it's so great. If you haven't read Saga, read Saga. Um, I guess real quick, it's in a nutshell. It's the space opera between two lovers, if you will, that have a child. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet, but instead of just their families kind of being at odds, it's their entire species that are. It is a pretty weird comic. That's why I love it. There's a lot of boobs. Like I said, I'm a simple guy. It's just fucking awesome. So please check out Saga. Written by Brian K. Vaughan, art by Fiona Staples. The art is some of my favorite. You probably hear me say that a lot about these comics. I just love the art in a lot of these comics. But the art is seriously something special in Saga. It's always going to hold the place in my heart as my favorite comic. It's really the comic that gripped me. Like I said, Red Sun, Superman Red Sun is kind of the comic. It was like my gateway into comics. But Saga was like the top of the tier. It's the one that I could not put down. So please check it out. Okay, enough about Saga. The next one I have before we kind of dive into the more obscure books is Criminal. Written by Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips. This book is definitely, it's more down to earth and more grounded, especially compared to a book like Saga. They're very different. Some people may love Criminal and some people may hate Saga or vice versa. Criminal in a nutshell, each issue, which they're thicker issues. It's each issue is a anthology. Set in this world, a lot of times set in the same city, and it just follows, each issue just follows different criminals in different times. Some of them are connected and loosely, but you can kind of pick up whatever criminal trade paperback you want and start from there, and you'll totally understand the story. You won't be lost in any way. So I encourage you all to try out Criminal. Ed Brubaker, one of the greatest comic writers working today, and Sean Phillips' art is fantastic. I have nothing but good things to say about Criminal. Okay. Next one I have here is definitely a little more obscure, not as well known as Saga or Criminal. It's a one-off. It's called N. It's very grounded, even more grounded than I would say Criminal. It's just, it kind of follows this regular guy who, is I think in his mid-20s. He's just kind of trying to find his place in this world, but it's told in such an interesting way. And the guy, he deals with anxiety and in particular not being able to connect with people. and there's a really funny bit in here where he connects with a plumber who's fixing his toilet, and it's super funny in the art. I just gotta point that some of the art out here. It's incredible. Oh, it's so good. So please check this out. It's really good. It came out in, I believe, last year, and I read it. I believe in one sitting. Yeah, I love it. This was a recommendation from OmniDog. He was talking about it in one of his videos, and I said I think I'd like that, so I ordered it and I loved it. So next one I have is a little more kind of fantasy, I guess you could say, a little more out there. It's The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, written by Ram V. It's a one and done as well. This is the entire story. There's nothing more to it. Quick read. Essentially, it's about the god of death. She gets fired when the person that is going to cure death is born on Earth. So she goes down to Earth and tries to stop that person from inventing the cure. And I know it sounds pretty wacky, because it is, but it's just an interesting story about death. So I can't recommend this book enough. Next book I have is, I mean, if I were to do a true top 5, I mean, this would be at least in the top 3. It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by Zoe Thorogood, and drawn by Zoe Thorogood. This book, it's a memoir of sorts, and it follows Zoe Thorogood and I believe about a 6-month period of her life. It does kind of flash back more to her childhood a bit, but Zoe Thorogood is not shy about sharing her struggles with depression, anxiety, and she just does it in a way that's so compelling, and it's, I don't want to say funny, that sounds messed up, but it is an overall funny book for being kind of how I just described it, about depression and anxiety. It can be a heavy book in regards to suicidal thoughts, hurting yourself. So if you're sensitive to that stuff, maybe stay away. But if you're not, and you think this book would be for you, I mean, check it out, please. She does so many different art styles and so many just interesting things for the comic genre of storytelling. She's just very inventive, and I'm such a fan of her now that any book she comes out with, I'm gonna buy. It's first day buy immediately. It's just that good. Okay. Next is it's probably the most popular out of the bunch besides Saga and Criminal. It's Something is Killing the Children. It's by James Tyrion IV, and it gives off Stranger Things vibes. It's very dark. It's about children dying. In the title, that's what it's about. But it's this mystery horror type thing. Like I said, it's very much in the same vein as Stranger Things. And I think that's all I'm going to say about it. I want you to go into this blind. Next is one that I hear like no one talk about, and that's 4 Kids Walk into a Bank. I believe this was picked up for either a TV show or a movie. This book, I mean, my God, I got this on Christmas Day of 2023, and I read it within like an hour of starting it. It was that good. It's a fun read, quick read, and essentially it's about this girl who finds out her dad kind of has maybe not the most, let's say, safe past. She finds out that her dad used to be a bank robber, and his old gang that he used to roll with comes back into town and tries. I won't spoil anything, but please read it. It's very funny. If you like D&D, it has a lot of references to D&D, which I'm not. I don't even like D&D, to be honest. But I thought that was funny and neat little references. So please check that out. Next one I have is 8 Billion Genies. Essentially, it's about what if everyone on Earth all of a sudden at the same time gets a genie and one wish. As you can imagine, chaos ensues. A lot of people wish for superpowers, just not things that are gonna serve humanity as a whole. Things that are just gonna serve oneself. And I guess ultimately that's kind of what the book is about. And the artwork is great. Actually, I heard Seth Rogen got the licensing rights to this book for a movie. So check that out and maybe come to a movie theater or maybe a show too. I don't know. But that's what I heard. Seth Rogen's awesome. He does a lot of cool stuff. So if that's the case, I'm very excited about that. So that's it for today. I just, like I said, I wanted to come on here and talk a bit about some of the comics that I love. I can talk about a lot more independent comics. I read a lot of indie comics. It's kind of my bread and butter. I definitely enjoy indie comics more than I do Marvel or DC. I do like Marvel, obviously, and DC, mostly Batman. But regardless, I can definitely talk a lot more about a bunch of different indie comics.
Someone is at side door.
So that's what I got for you today. Like I said, I wanted to come on here and talk a bit about indie comics that I love. I can talk about a lot more independent comics because that's kind of my bread and butter. I love indie comics. I read more indie comics than I do Marvel or DC. I do like Marvel, obviously, and I like DC, Batman mostly. But yeah, so I definitely do want to talk more about indie comics. Comics that are more, I guess, obscure, because there's so many great ones out there, and especially nowadays, I mean, we are really living in the golden age of comics. I mean, there's just so much out there. So please go read some indie comics. Yeah, that's it.